This is a fascinating topic. I was recently at Salesforce for a number of years, worked with Anshu, so we're going to have some fun today on this panel. And sort of developing the platform strategy, developing a lot of the processes and strategies as we scaled over the process of, I think I was there 7 years. And the key was that the change, the rapid change of development, and also very similar themes to what we heard this morning around people, the processes and shrinking teams down to get agility, but also the ability for individuals to change. And that becomes really a human factor. So the overlay is the methodology that we've been working on. So just started my 5th startup called Empath. And the overlay strategy is this idea where we have a significant amount of legacy, a significant amount of technical debt that is almost impossible to go back and solve. But we also have this problem that we need to solve where we're going faster and faster and faster. So change is no longer constant. It's a derivative. It's getting continuously faster because it lowers the boundaries of entry. It increases the ability for 2 people or 1 person in a garage to be able to come and build something that can actually take down a flagship product from a large company. And those sort of things, when you're in a larger company and you have the technical debt, the overlay is a way that you can address the new opportunities. So instead of looking at this as a problem, it's about a consolidation of the ability to work around a UI, because as you know, it's not only be the smart platforms or smartphones, it's not going to only be tablets and TVs, it's going to be the parking meter. It's going to be anything that has a screen. And you can consolidate a platform strategy and development strategy which adopts and brings in these new devices, but you're doing it at the UI layer. And I call no app for that because the idea that you have a phone with 17 apps or 100 apps or so on, they're all individual. It's a great UI process from what we had before, but there's too many apps. So no app for that is a whole new idea about consolidating, again, around the UI and having a unique experience for the individual, which connects to all these different devices. So it's not multiple applications that are written that you download for the App Store, but it's one unified experience. So on the iPhone or wherever you're going in to interact, it's your unique ability to connect with your TV, to book a restaurant or to do something internally, open a case, for example. Not individual apps, all through one unified layer. And of course, the competitive landscape, as I mentioned, is not looking at your area or even looking up. It's looking at the 2 people or the 1 person or the startups that are coming from below, because they are so fast. So how does a legacy or a large company who has all of this legacy, this technical debt, and so on, compete with that? And the multi-platform development or achievement cannot possibly keep up with a concept around an overlay, which just, and the analogy I always use is, if you're going to install or put up phone systems today, you wouldn't go and do legacy. You would go and put in mobile phones. So it's kind of skipping it and then moving forward. So that's what we're going to discuss today.
I mean, really it can be described in terms of these 2 areas. I spent a lot of time building cloud services, and to exactly Trey's point, I've seen a huge amount of options continually explode for what you can use when you're building services. I mean, if you're looking at just Google alone, the services that are being added are crazy. And that's just managed services by one company. Then you throw in all the other players as well and look at the open source technology. And when you're building a back-end service, the options there are massive and continuing to grow. Almost every day, I'm sure everybody in the room is reading about new open source technology coming out, whether it's a small little tool to make one aspect of deploying easy, or whether it's a new database technology that some people are really excited about. That's one aspect. And that it really is an important aspect of when you're building these experiences of what is the common base ground that connects everything together. And the other aspect, currently I'm actually working on the Android partner team. And with that, it's amazing the amount of devices and platforms and interfaces that are available now to users. The wearable devices are fantastic to use, and they provide a new interface that really helps keep your users engaged. And so when I'm using my phone, I'm actually using the apps a lot more that have the integration with Wear, because they're the ones that are prompting me right away to bring me back in. Otherwise, automotive, I mean, you have this amazing Audi that any chance I get to work on that, I am, I am there. And you're looking at still everything like the iOS, the phones, the tablets, Android, things like Glass that are pretty far extreme visions of the future, but still it's an interface to consider, and is there something really valuable you can do with that? Like when you're traveling and being able to have real-time translation of text is a fantastic tool, especially when you're trying to read menus in Portuguese and don't even know a word. And so that's kind of what I've been seeing within this field is the huge amount of options, whether you're looking at interfaces, whether you're looking at back-end services and tooling, continues to exponentially explode. And it really requires, whenever you're starting from scratch or looking at moving existing technology or enterprise applications, to evaluate what are all the options, what should we do, what's my team familiar with, what are the new options, and where's the kind of fine boundary struck between comfortable technology people know how to use and actually things that can architect better and make your application better at the end of the day.
What I want to talk about a little bit in terms of the strategies for building for a global multi-platform. And the first point about this, and I think Jeremy pointed this out yesterday in the conversation around Walmart. And we all know that there's a plethora of clients, both today existing and some of the future technologies in this area, like Google Glass, et cetera. But I think it's really important that, and that's the first point here, before we get into a lot of debates around the client technology and what has to be done on the front end, that we really think about the architecture in the back end and the services and the plethora of architecture and platform and strategies in the platform that you have to ultimately build to serve all the different types of clients. So that is paramount. You have to have an architecture that actually can serve the multi-client world. So that being the first point of this, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, now thinking about where are the investments? What are sort of the things that we need to do in terms of serving the multitude of clients? And there's a few points here that are on a bullet. I'm not going to go through them one by one. But it's really, when you get there, it's an investment. And this is not an investment so much in technology, but actually it is an investment in the people. For example, a great user experience and design for usability is paramount. That's the ultimate goal. That's what all of our customers see and use. They don't necessarily interact with our back-end services, but they actually use the products that how we present them to them. So that being goal number one. And something that we're doing today at StubHub, for example, investing heavily in a mobile web strategy and building that for the future, for example, with responsive design that can actually serve up to a tablet and various other devices, including the desktop. It's a given that for most of us and most of our companies, we have consumers who are on the clients that require native apps. So depending on the ROI, you have to look at that strategically and see if that makes sense for you and for your company, investing in that. It goes without saying that having a framework around the user interface is paramount. And I want to mention one technology here. This is not separate from Node. Node is a part of this technology in the UI framework when we think about it. But it's more than just picking up a JavaScript library and giving it to the development team saying, go for it. And it's actually not about dictating that sort of technology down at that level. Tools automation, we talked about that a lot yesterday, absolutely paramount here as well. And the other thing, when you think about the strategy around the platform, is really being aware of the control points and the gates that you need to put in place. A lot of the interfaces that we build for clients have to be controlled because we're either building our own apps or partnering with other folks to build the apps. So we really have to understand who the consumer of these services are. There's several other points, but I'll mention one. Especially for consumer internet, which is what StubHub is, SEO, search engine optimizations on the client side, as well as client content caching, for example. These are also really important for users to be able to find you and find you quickly and fast. And at one point I want to mention here in terms of the strategy around, a lot of us talk about mobile first, and you've heard this concept of mobile first, mobile first. What does it really mean? For many, right now this is about, I got to have a native app team that works on Android, a native app team that works on iOS, and a team that works on the desktop and the clients and the JavaScript stuff and all of that. That's great, but there's a trend here in the industry that I'm certainly noticing, and that is completely actually shifting the other way, which means it's about the service that the consumers and the clients use. So if you have a checkout process, that's a team that actually works on that. It's not about having 3 separate teams, but one team, for example, that serves both the native and the in-web world. So this is a trend that's happening, and it may be a little bit controversial, but as you look at companies like Facebook and LinkedIn and other companies, they're moving in this direction where the engineering teams and the product teams are actually focused around a product and a service, not a stack of technology. Going back to my first point on the second slide, I have one more slide here. And I want to mention this. This is really, really important about the architecture of the back end and the services. The client is actually the tip of the iceberg, but it is the only thing that your customers see. And what I've tried to do here in this slide is, you see where the water line is, and you see the slide next to it? That's actually the StubHub global platform architecture. No pictures, please. So what you see there is at the very top layer that's the only piece that's serving the client. It's a very thin layer compared to everything else that's in the back end. And yes, this is hard work, and for many of us, this is coming from a background of a monolithic application framework, with, building these services, and then ultimately building on top of that the client technology.
Perfect time to reflect a little bit into the past and talk about cross-platform not being really a new problem. If you look at this slide, the emphasis here is look at the package software industry, right? We still have that. It's not too far into the back. And we had this cross-platform concerns on the server side. The ISVs were always struggling with shipping shrink-wrap software for Windows, Linux, AIS, Solaris. So there was a set of platforms that the server team had to support. And then came SaaS, the cloud-enabled era, where those concerns were eroded, mainly because the ISV started hosting the software in their own data centers. And then now we are at the interesting junction where we have SaaS-enabled backend as a service, which is interacted by various client-side devices, handheld devices, even the TV, smartphones, and so forth, right? And the interesting shift that I noticed here is the cross-platform concerns have now moved to the client side. And they are aggravated because they are now into the hands of consumers. When you see various platforms on the client side, Android, iOS, Windows, these platforms are now in the hands of consumers, and they are dictating the user behavior. These platforms are becoming so powerful that the user will be having a hard time switching from one platform to another. And these are, we are talking of non-IT, non-tech, complete end-user consumers where these technologies are landing into their hands. So When you look at the incumbents in this area and the speed of innovation, it is hard to think of open standards resolving that bridge, bringing them together. Just the rapid speed of innovation is going to make it really hard for open standards like HTML5 to catch up. And the differences are continually growing. Even if you take about the closest open standard is HTML5, and it is still document-oriented standard. It is not app-oriented standard. So in this world, in this landscape where the differences are so vast between the existing platforms, how do we do the trade-off between reducing the cost for development on these various platforms, and at the same time provide a very delightful experience for each of these platforms for our apps? We'll be discussing that. I'm looking forward to hearing various opinions and giving mine. But I think the answer lies in the goal that you have for your specific apps.
So I thought I'll just take a step back and just talk about, so my name is Anshu. I worked with Trey for many 6 years at Salesforce.com. And currently, I'm taking a year off, investing, advising some startups and such. So I thought, given that I have time all summer to relax and do nothing but think about these things from a broader perspective, I will step back and say, why does it even matter, right? Why are we even talking about multi-platform global applications? Why is this an important topic? And some of you in the room, I think, are from companies that actually build and ship software for a living, in the sense that you actually get paid for the software. And then there's a bunch of companies I see here that don't really get paid for the software, but are increasingly dependent more and more on software. I see Experian here, Walmart. 10 years ago, the IT group within these companies would have been known as the IT group. This is the back-end guys that make sure that the payroll gets done. And what's happening is your company is basically an app now. So if you're Walgreens, you're competing with the Amazon app, not with, Rite Aid Pharmacy next door. If you are Experian, you're competing with FICO's app. You are Walmart, so on and so forth. So what that lends to is this digital transformation, which makes all of your jobs important. And I think as we navigate this transformation, one of the key questions we have to ask is, what are the core principles that we need to follow as we try to build these multi-platform applications, right? And we've laid out some of the principles here, the various team members. I don't want to go over it again. But from my perspective, there's a few things I'm seeing, right? One is, this is just the repeat of everything we've seen before. So if you were around in 1990s, late 90s, we said, oh my God, we are moving from client-server to web-oriented architecture. There's going to be new standards. Anybody struggled here with WS star for years, myself included. And what usually ends up happening is the standards body, as Komal said, run off and try to implement the world's most perfect system, but we don't have time for it. So implementing and shipping it is now recognized as the fastest path to discovering the best processes and the best architecture, right? The second thing that I've noticed in the last 3 months is just the rise of open source is beyond what I had seen even in the last 5 to 10 years, right? Companies are increasingly asking, why not open source? Whereas when I spent 10 years at Oracle and many years at Salesforce, the question we would ask was, why open source? Or why not? We rely on, we are a blue shop, we are a yellow shop, we are a red shop. We have ELAs and enterprise-wide agreements to just use whatever we have. And now, even when you have those agreements in place, for multiplicity of those reasons, starting from something as simple as engineers unwilling to actually code against non-open source technologies purely for the sake of their careers, there's a huge transformation going on. So I look forward to a debate. One question I did want to ask is, how many people here don't work for a company that is in the software business in the sense that they don't sell software to others? See, that's amazing. More than half the people are here who don't make money selling software, but I can guarantee you they make a lot of money with software.